What's up guys, this is Ultimate iDevice Vids, and in this video we're going to be doing a speed test between the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So Apple's latest 3 generations of Pro Max iPhones. And a few things I want to mention before we get started. All 3 devices are running at their peak performance capability in regards to battery health, and they're all running the latest version of iOS 16 as of recording this video. And we're going to kick things off with some app launching tests. So we're going to start off with some lighter, simpler applications, and as to be expected with most modern smartphones these days, all 3 devices just tear through all of these applications without any hesitation. And as I'm sure some of you guys know, this year with the iPhone 14 series iPhones, Apple only added a new processor to the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, being the Apple A16 chip. The standard iPhone 14 and 14 Plus still have the A15 chip, just with a slightly updated GPU. And from my perspective, doing these speed tests on a variety of different devices from different years, I could definitely see why. The Apple A15 chip is just so powerful. I mean, head to head with the A16 chip, even in this video, you could see just how minor of a difference it is for average daily tasks. And even as we get into some of the slightly heavier games, it's the same just minor, split second to 1 second difference is really the only thing that you could notice. And that's only really noticeable when you're comparing devices side by side like we're doing today. Of course, in day-to-day life, you're not going to notice differences that are this small. As I've said before, Apple's silicon chips over the last several years have gotten so powerful, which future-proofs iPhones for many years to come. Today, using an iPhone that has a processor that's 4 or 5 years old is usually a negligible difference in terms of speed when doing day-to-day tasks. Of course, after several years, you might start to notice little minor lags here or there, but nothing that's really going to impact you in any significant way. So you can imagine in a video like this, and we're comparing, the latest 3 Pro Max devices, these phones are basically just going to tear through 99% of the tasks that you throw at them. And as you're seeing, with very minor differences between them, maybe just a second or two. Next, we're going to do a consecutive app launching test. So I'm going to launch the very same set of applications on all 3 of these devices, and I'm going to show each device doing this side by side, just to give you an idea of what it's like switching between applications in fast succession on all 3 of these phones. So as to be expected, basically the same results that showed in the previous app launching test are showing here, with just that split second to maximum 1 or 2 second difference between these devices. Of course, the biggest margin being between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but even that is literally just a second or two. And of course, with a test like this, when I'm just rapidly switching between these apps as fast as I can, there's definitely a little bit of a margin for error, so definitely don't analyze this very carefully, just kind of take it as gauging overall speed and performance. And of course, we're not really doing anything super CPU intensive, but again, the goal of this is really just to see how these phones are going to do with, day-to-day tasks and, throwing in a few moderately heavy games as well. And as to be expected, all 3 devices performed great, very similarly. Maybe just with that split-second advantage the newer the device is. And directly following the consecutive app launching test, I want to do a quick RAM management check and just make sure that all of these applications are still open in the background. Once again, we really didn't do anything CPU intensive, but I just wanted to go back and make sure that all applications were open, and sure enough, they all were on all 3 devices. And by the way, all 3 of these devices have 6 gigabytes of RAM. Next, we're going to run a Face ID test. I'm just going to unlock all 3 of these devices with Face ID and show them doing this side by side. And as to be expected, all blazing fast. Also, notice that new animation on the 14 Pro Max with the dynamic island. Next, we're just going to load a few web pages in Safari. As to be expected with devices that are, this powerful, you're not going to have any issues with this whatsoever. And as I often say, also keep in mind that web page loading tests are entirely dependent on the internet connection that you're using. But I just loaded up a few web pages on google.com and a few web pages on apple.com as well. And in terms of scrolling smoothness, not just in the web browser, but everywhere in iOS, all devices are going to be very smooth. Although I will say the 13 Pro Max and 14 Pro Max do have a display refresh rate that goes up to 120 Hertz. And this is something that I really cannot show off on camera. You just have to see it for yourself. But it definitely does make a difference. It makes scrolling and just animations in general feel a lot smoother. It is a nice feature to have, nothing huge, but definitely a nice quality of life improvement. Next, we're going to run a few benchmark apps, the first of which being Geekbench, and as to be expected, a steady progression in the numbers the newer the device is. And unlike the standard iPhone 14, I do see that little bit of an improvement in the numbers on the 14 Pro Max as a result of that new A16 Bionic chip. And next, we're going to run an Antutu benchmark, and same thing to report here with that steady progression in the numbers the newer the device is. And there you guys have it. As to be expected, these three phones being Apple's latest three most powerful and luxurious phones, you're definitely not going to have any issues with speed and performance as this video has shown. I can say without a doubt in 2022, all three of these devices are very top of the line phones. If you guys use any of these three phones, let me know down below in the comments section how the speed and performance has been for you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.